Hello everyone and welcome to the video. So today I will be going over 10 tips and tricks to make your interiors better. So let's jump right into it. So number 1 is coming up with a floor plan. Now I know this is a bit boring, but it's really helpful. It prevents you having to plan once you're halfway through the build. Now you don't have to go too crazy, just have a rough idea and allows the build to just flow and makes everything easier. Now it's boring and simple it is, I do recommend it. It doesn't hurt and it doesn't take that long. Now, on a similar note, number 2 is that open floor plans are a no-go. Now, the reason why I say this is because typically when you have open floor plans in other video games, you can usually detail it with lots of stuff, but since you're kind of limited by part count, I recommend going with a smaller closed space. This doesn't require as much detailing and allows you to just focus on the sort of furniture or something like that. So yeah, that's my personal opinion, but something you might want to try. So yeah. Now number 3 is also kind of similar, but not really. I would say try to keep structural properties kind of in mind. Now, I understand this is a video game, you don't have to be super realistic, but I think it does kind of look cool if you sort of show that a little bit. You don't have to go all out, but just a little bit adds to the realism and makes it a little bit look better. And that's just also, again, my opinion. But you just add support beams, nothing crazy. You can also do that stuff with other things you'd see, like ventilation systems, which is sort of on a similar note, but yeah, that one's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Alrighty, so for number 4, I have a few sort of things. So I'm going to be talking about walls in this one. Now you have a few options in my opinion. So what you don't want to do is just sort of a wall that's the same color as the floor and roof, and that's totally flat. Now, you sort of have two options where you can do both. So one thing is to try to add depth to the wall. Now one way I do this is by adding struts, and this sort of adds depth, and it's pretty simple and it's not too crazy with the part count. Now the other thing you could try is just changing a different color on the walls and the floor or roof. This allows you to see a really clear difference between where the floor is and where the wall is. Now you could do both these, but I don't know how many paint colors, because I always run out of paint colors. So that's just up to you. Now, number 5 is sort of similar to the open floor plan. Not really. It's just to make the rooms busy by adding furniture and then adding small things. Like in one of my latest builds, I had a bunch of cups and plates everywhere. This makes it seem less empty, more lived in. It's honestly not that crazy. It's pretty simple, and it makes a big difference in my opinion. It can really make something alive and more realistic. So yeah. Now, for number 6, it's all about windows. So I'm going to be giving you some brief tips, mainly 3 tips around windows. For starters, I like to make them thinner than the surrounding sort of walls, if you will. So I use structural panels as sort of the walls, since I panel everything. And I make the windows slightly thinner. Now the next tip is to turn off shadows. So this does involve tinker panel, but I think it's fantastic, especially if you have shadows on. So what you can do is go down to tinker panel and turn off the shadows. This allows sunlight to pass through and makes a much more realistic effect. Now granted, sunlight won't be tinted or anything like that with real windows, but it's a great way to make them better. The other thing you might want to do is not make them absolutely massive. Now, granted, I do love some massive windows, but try not to go too crazy. Sometimes it will take away from your build. It just all depends on what you're going for and obviously what your goals are. So yeah. Now, for number 7, I'm talking about ceilings. Now, for my interiors, my goal is always make them totally walk aroundable by astronauts. That's my goal typically. Now, if there's something similar, or if you just want a realistic ceiling height, So an astronaut's about 2 meters tall. I usually go for between 2.5 and 3 meters tall. That allows for plenty of room and it kind of gives a more open effect. Going directly with a 2 meter tall ceiling is just a little bit tight, and sometimes astronauts will, it just gets a little bit glitchy. So try to have some small gaps, or depending on what you're going for, you can make them smaller, bigger, totally up to you. For number 8, I want to talk about textures. Now the game has a large variety of textures that can be very helpful. But in interiors, I tend not to use them too much, or what you can do is to tune down the texture in the paint. I just find that they're a little bit overpowering and just a little bit too busy in interiors. So that's, again, sort of a personal opinion, but I wouldn't go all out on the textures. It might actually take away and distract sort of people from your actual build. So yeah, that one's pretty simple. Now for number 9, I'm going to be talking about colors. While they don't seem super important, they can be rather important. So for living quarters on one of my recent builds, which is on the screen now, you can see how the top floors are more of a lighter cream color, and I follow that same theme with the lights. This is because warmer colors, which I mean like more orange, that's kind of what I mean, tend to be a bit more relaxed. Now on the underside, which I'm showing you now, I went with darker and colder colors. Now this sets a clearer sort of difference between different floors. But what I'm trying to show you is just sort of keep in mind what you want to do with this space and sort of what colors. So if you want something more relaxed, you go the warmer. It's pretty straightforward. The same thing applies with the lights, actually especially with the lights, but that's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Alrighty, number 10, and this is the last one. I'm going to be talking about furniture. Now, there's 2 different ways to do furniture. So I like to make furniture that's usable. That means you can put a chair in, make it invisible, and then you can have an astronaut in there. That's what I like to do. But unfortunately, this has a side effect of not being very realistic. Now, your other option is to make sort of normal looking furniture, something you like to see in the real world. But unfortunately, this typically means it's not usable by astronauts. So you have to decide sort of what style you want to go with, and sort of do you want it to be usable or not. Unfortunately, I don't think it's really possible to do both. It is in some cases with like chairs. Custom chairs are a great way to add more detail. But yeah. Congratulations! You made it to the end of the video. I hope you found these helpful. If you want me to cover something else, or have any suggestions or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you didn't like the video, also leave a comment and tell me what I can do better. So until next time, have an awesome day. See ya!